Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and today I'm going to be talking about the top 7 things you can do in your 20s to be wealthy in your 30s. And I know times are tough, but with a little hard work, discipline, and some luck, you can be on a path to sustainable wealth. And if you're also working on trying to achieve financial freedom as soon as possible in life, I'd love if you could please smash that like button and please subscribe, because it greatly helps out my channel with the YouTube algorithm and because I'm here to help you and myself achieve our dreams of financial freedom. Thanks. The number one thing to do is save. Whether you're in college or not, make as much money as you can and save as much as you can. And for right now, in this current market environment, I suggest having a FDIC insured money market account that earns a little bit of interest so that your cash is not just burning up in flames in the dumpster fire known as inflation. And whether you consider it an emergency fund or not, it's helpful to have saved funds in case of an unexpected car repair or medical bills, or you suddenly get invited to lots of weddings now that things are returning to normal. So either way, save as much as you can right now. Also, unlike what some financial pundits would have you believe, saving and investing only 10% of your income may not be enough to survive during retirement. And if we take this NerdWallet retirement calculator for some examples, let's say you're 22 years old and you have an income of $43,000 a year and you save only 10% of that, you may be just short of reaching retirement goals. And then let's say you're living life and not really prioritizing saving up for retirement. And then one day you're 27 and now you have an increased amount of income at $75,000, and now you decide, let me save 20%, and maybe you could be on track towards retirement with that amount as long as you're able to consistently earn 6% on the 20% you're saving. And that can be difficult because life doesn't just move in a straight line. So there's so many curveballs that life could throw at you that this may not be so simple of just saving 20% of your income from age 27 till 40 years later at age 67. And then what if you don't want to retire at 67 but retire at age 50? It's not enough at that point to only be saving 20% of your income at that current rate of return. You need to be generating higher rates of return, such as 15%, which is really impressive to be able to generate that kind of return just to be able to retire someday at age 50, and somehow you're able to consistently earn a rate of return of 15% on only 20% saved. So that's actually pretty good if you're able to pull that off. But then more realistically, let's say we're able to earn the higher limit of the stock market's average rate of return, which is anywhere between 7 to 10%. And let's say we're getting 10% rate of return on our saved amount of money. We'll still need 37% of saved income in order to be able to retire at age 50. So these are just some things to consider, and I encourage you to play around with retirement calculators so you can try to judge what your lifestyle will need when you retire. 2, college at a price that makes sense. I suggest going to college if you don't know what you want to do with your life and you don't want to start a business when you're 18. And I strongly urge you not to overpay for college, because there are so many people with lots of student loans, and that's debilitating and really difficult to generate wealth when you're weighed down by a lot of student loan debt. As well as, sure, you could be working during this whole time, but your job options and the amount that you could earn may be limited when you don't have a college degree. As well as, if you're trying to make money, try to find a balanced intersection between a career that can get you a decent amount of income and your own happiness levels, because there's no point in making as much money as you can if you're not happy. It may be difficult to prove the exact value of college, but according to a Forbes article, researchers found that a college degree delivers inflation-adjusted annual returns of over 15%, which is way better than what you could get with the historical average rate of return with stocks being at 7 to 10%, or bonds, real estate, and gold averaging 3% each. So this is just something to keep in mind as to what the value of a college degree could really be. But just like not all investment choices are good decisions, not all college degrees are worth all the student loan amounts in the world. And that same Forbes article said that people who took out more than $25,000 of student loans report lower financial and physical well-being for as long as 25 years after graduation. So this is also something to keep in mind and not overburden yourself with student loans. When I was in high school, I was afraid of an insurmountable amount of student loan debt, so I avoided that by going to a good public college that was just as good as any private college, all for a public school price. And as well as I went to a public university for grad school, and then I was able to pay off all of my student loans in my 20s, and I'm happy that I didn't take on more debt than I needed to. And don't just take my word for it. The annual median earnings for people aged 22 to 27 with a college degree are a whopping $17,500 more than if you only had a high school degree. So people with high school degrees may only be having a median income of $25,500 compared to those who have a college degree earning $43,000. So you break even with that college degree after working for only 4 years of that differential of $17,500 multiplied by 4, which gets you $70,000. So if you got a college degree worth that amount, you paid that off in only 4 years of working. And then it gets even better. You continue earning a premium after you've broken even on your college degree, which you don't get that benefit if you only kept a high school degree. 3, open a Roth IRA if you haven't already, and I encourage you to check out my videos about why I think Roth IRAs are so awesome, and do the best you can to contribute as much as possible, because you only have the tax year in which to contribute up until the tax filing deadline the following spring. And even if you don't invest all of that Roth money right away, it's okay. You can leave cash parked there as long as you make sure your contributions are in before the tax filing deadline every year. And 2 things, if you remember nothing else: tax-free investment returns and no taxes during retirement age starting at 59 and a half. Enough said. Number 4, invest wisely. And I suggest checking yourself to see if at this point in time in the markets, if it makes sense to invest, or if you should spend a little bit more time learning how to invest before you buy certain equities or other kinds of assets. And I've been there and done that. I've invested in index funds, target date funds, and robo-advisors, and they've all led me to the conclusion that I'd like to try to challenge myself and see if I can achieve a little bit more in life. And that's why I'm trying to become an above average investor. So I'm on a mission to generate above average rates of return than what you could get normally with just investing in index funds. So I've embarked on a road less traveled, and this makes me really partial to the way that Warren Buffett invests, because the way he does it makes sense to me. And Berkshire Hathaway, the company that Warren Buffett runs, has been able to generate compounded annual rates of return of 20% per year from 1965 through 2020, and that's 55 years of outperforming the S&P 500, which during the same amount of time has only been able to generate 10.2% of rates of return on average, including dividends. So considering this, I'm very partial to trying to do my best to invest the way Buffett does. They say you should take more risks when you're younger and have more stocks than bonds in your portfolio. But I actually think that unless bonds come back to interest rates at levels that we haven't seen since the 1980s, I wouldn't bother at all with any bonds. I would stay as invested as much as possible in equities, and otherwise, if that's not attractive right now, to keep a big war chest of cash lying around for the day when stocks go on sale and it's time to rescue some of these companies by investing our retail money into them. And that's what I think as far as bonds go. And even 90-year-old Warren Buffett thinks that for his second wife, Astrid, that even she at 75 years old should have 90% of her money invested in equities as opposed to maybe only having 10% in bonds. And considering that, if they at their age level can be invested mostly in stocks, then I don't see why those of us who are younger can't be also just as much invested, if not more, in equities. So if you're going to buy securities, assuming you've done your homework, then buy and hold. Get this tattooed on your forehead if you need to remember, and buy and hold for as long as possible, ideally forever like Buffett likes to do. If you want to learn how to invest like the legendary goats of investing, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, I encourage you to pick up this book that I wish I had when I was in my early 20s called Invested by Danielle Town and Phil Town. And if you don't want to read books, then pick up their podcast also called Invested, and you'll get an amazing education for free. And you don't have to buy the book. You can go to a library and they probably have that book. And if you don't want to do either of those things of reading or listening to just audio, then I encourage you to watch more of my YouTube videos, because I cover a lot of things that Buffett and Munger do in my videos, and that's a great way to also learn how to invest like them. Then again, sometimes making mistakes is the best teacher. So if you find yourself giving into FOMO, buying meme stocks or cryptos, and then you come to regret it if you lost money, maybe you got your money's worth with the lesson learned. And the antidote is to keep learning and try not to repeat the mistakes again. Number 5, get more income streams. If you realize you're not bringing in as much as you'd like to or need to, then find ways to make more money. The best way is in the form of a business, as long as you're able to generate positive cash flows and not over leverage yourself and remain interested in what you're doing. Sure, you could sell things online, but is that really your passion? If it is, great. If not, then take your time and trying to figure out what kinds of income streams you'd like to have for yourself. And then it's better to get to know yourself than being in a rush to make a quick buck or making a commitment to run a business when you're not ready to do that. It's better to just wait until you're ready to make that leap. Number 6, pay off all debt unless it's a mortgage or maybe you took out a business loan. And except for those things, make sure you're paying off as soon as possible all of your student loan, car loan, and any credit card debt in your 20s. And this is what I prioritize doing, and I'm so happy to have reached debt-free status in my 20s, and I already feel wealthy just being in the black. It's amazing. If you start making more money every year, don't let lifestyle creep cloud your priorities. And of course, you could afford nicer things, but would you rather have things or be wealthy? So don't lose sight of any debts that could be keeping you from being wealthy. And in essence, live below your means even when you graduate from your 20s into your 30s and find yourself making more money. Number 7, live life to the fullest and take risks within reason. And it's okay to feel like you're broke or poor during your 20s, because that's what society expects of us when we're in our 20s. But that doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy life and become rich in experiences even if your bank account doesn't have a lot of money. And once upon a time, I really didn't have that much money, but I still made the most of life by doing things like skydiving and floating in the air, and it felt super amazing to do that, or bungee jumping from a really tall bridge in New Zealand. And I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything in the world. There's no amount of money that you could pay me to reverse having had those experiences, and I made the most of it. So even though I could barely afford those experiences, I offset some of the cost of that by staying in some cheap youth hostels. So that's a way that you can balance the need to have meaningful experiences with trying to do it on the cheap. Your 20s are the best time to try out different jobs to see what kind of career you'd like to have, whether you're working for someone else or yourself. The older you get, the harder it can be to switch careers, especially since people in their 30s tend to get more responsibilities, like they get a spouse or get a house and get kids or other kinds of commitments that weigh them down. So the best time to act is now in your 20s while you're not weighed down by baggage. The best thing I found is to not overthink these actions, but to gradually every day make a conscious decision to improve a little bit. And after a decade of honing your self-discipline skills, I think you can't help but become wealthy by your 30s, if not by your 40s, which is still a whole universe away. A lot of financial insecurity evaporates if you go about this correctly. And I believe if you consistently make good decisions, you'll reach your financial goals. And if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments about what you did in your 20s to become wealthy in your 30s. And I wish you well on your journey towards financial freedom. Till next time.